Thanks for staying with us. This is Daybreak, and a pleasure for according us your company here on the broadcast. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. With me in studio, Professor Noah Midamba, Professor Peter Kagwanja, Ahmed Hashi, and Ronald Ebole, who is the lead researcher with Amnesty International, focusing on the East African region, Tanzania and Uganda, to be specific. And good morning, Ronald.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, especially with these gentlemen.
Yes, pleasure to be with you also. A lot is happening in the region.
Yeah, a lot, so much.
These gentlemen have been waiting for you. So give us a scorecard of the situation, especially in Tanzania, given it's our focus this morning, and the state of human rights, including those that have been imprisoned, and Tundu Lissu, to be specific, who has been disqualified from the electoral contest.
Yeah, so Tanzania goes into election, Zanzibar starting today. Yeah. So Zanzibar normally has a two-day election, 28th and 29th. But the main elections, especially mainland, will be tomorrow, the 29th. But the state or the human rights situation around the election is really worrying and should really worry East Africa, the region, and the international community at large. One, we have Tundu Lissu, who would have been the main competitor for Samia Suluhu Hassan, who's in prison, treason charges, which are unbailable according to the Tanzanian laws. The other candidate that would have come close to challenge Samia Suluhu Hassan is Luhaga Mpina, ACT Wazalendo, a defector of CCM Chama cha Mapinduzi, the ruling party, who again was disqualified by the electoral body. And ACT Wazalendo challenged, that the High Court in Dodoma ordered that the electoral body reinstates him, but the electoral body refused, saying that, the Attorney General of Tanzania came up with new grounds. So you can already see that the electoral body is already, meddling and looks compromised. But again, apart from that, Chadema as a party, which is the main opposition party, in totality is disqualified. So there will be no elections in terms of no member of Chadema at all levels running for elections, because the party was disqualified because of not signing an electoral code of conduct that, the electoral body, INEC, requires. But that's not just it. We are talking of an environment where the state is using so much force. I normally joke and say it's repression on steroids, whereby, members of even the CCM that try to criticize the state have been abducted. A few weeks ago, we had the abduction of an ambassador, that is a diplomat, a former ambassador of Tanzania to Cuba, who had just resigned, came back to the country and was criticizing the governance and the administration of President Samia Suluhu Hassan. He was abducted, disappeared. We do not know where he is to date. The disappearance does not just target an ambassador, it also targets TikTokers. So everyone is at risk. TikToker Shadrach Chaula disappeared, immediately after he was released, after paying fine, after he posted a TikTok where he was ridiculing the president. We've had other people that have disappeared. We document this year 6, last year 5 prominent people, activists like Mdude Nyagali and others. Beyond that, we have had torture and other inhumane treatment against activists in the country, but also foreign activists. We all know the case of Boniface Mwangi and Agatha Atuhaire, who had gone to Tanzania for a trial observation of Tundu Lissu's case in solidarity, and they were arbitrarily arrested, tortured, and after 4 days dumped near their borders to cross. You know the case of Mwabili Mwagodi, again, abducted in a similar manner. Also, freedom of movement, freedom of free movement. Martha Karua, you remember the case of Willy Mutunga. These are high-ranking Kenyans. The other activists that were there, Hussein Khalid, Hanifa, and all that, but prevented from entering Tanzania, which goes against the East Africa Community Treaty in as far as free movement of people and goods is concerned. Beyond those ones who you can argue that they were activists, politicians are prevented from moving around in their own country, which goes against their own freedom of of movement.
Yeah.
There is also, curtailment on freedom of peaceful assembly. We have seen rallies, especially opposition rallies, that have been disrupted. We have seen people arrested in hundreds. Chadema members last year, we document at one given day before the International Youth Day, 500 plus youth members of Chadema were rounded up, arrested, and prevented from meeting. But there's a lot in the report that we can continue speaking about.
And Prof, then, where does this place institutions, given that power is concentrated in the executive in Tanzania and has enormous control over the judiciary, and also the president is the one who picks members of the Electoral Commission? I mean, where does this place the integrity of the polls?
Well, Tanzania is practically where Kenya was in 1990, 1991, effectively, if you push time back. And it is there because everything that is that Amnesty International and our brother here is mentioning tallies in with that. Arrest of Kenneth Matiba, arrest of Raila Odinga, arrest of Charles Robia in detention as the main opposition people, the crackdown on James Orengo, Anyang and others in the so-called the Young Turks, hunting down anybody from the party itself who is opposing the leader of the day, who was Daniel Moi. And therefore, when you look at Kenya in 1990, 1991, that is where Tanzania is stagnated. You can call it regression because it's a time when it appeared like democracy was moving forward, and that the Tanzanian leadership is preparing itself to dominate the political space from a democratic paradigm rather than an authoritarian paradigm. But that has shifted. Tanzania is displaying three oppositions at three levels, and one of them will shock you. The first level is, of course, at the worst, is cramped down on opposition within the CCM itself. And that is the most draconian, because there is no, this is not ideological. It is simply that you are a traitor, and therefore you are treated as such. This is taking the form of losing your jobs, in the form of imprisonment, abduction, disappearances. And because you are a member of the party, nobody cares. Because Amnesty International, possibly, and other freedom organizations internationally are focusing on the opposition. And therefore, what is happening within the CCM itself is fairly draconian. Then you come to the opposition, and I think the narrative has been very well given here, what has happened to Chadema and all. But Tanzania's real, ghost, or if you wish, the fear, the nightmare that they're having is the Kenyan syndrome. And that's why they have decided to look inside.
I agree.
Because the Kenyan syndrome is the Gen Z, the youth. Yeah. And Tanzania has 37.7 million registered young voters. Now, if you have to cramp down on that, you cannot allow democracy to prevail. So they have gone to the default mode, which is authoritarianism of the one-party era of that CCM. Yeah. So if you begin now to look at how do we move Tanzania forward, it means basically, one, empowering the groups within CCM that are facing this, and that really focusing the spotlight on them, and two, basically fighting for the expansion of the democratic space. That way. Why is this important? Because Tanzania's own behavior is beginning to become a justification for the regionalization of authoritarianism in East Africa. What Tanzania is doing, abductions, crossing borders and all, is what is happening in Kenya, is what is happening in Uganda. And in Kenya, the democratic space is more or less guarded by our constitution, and the fact that our founding party, KANU, was liquidated. If it is still surviving, we would be where Tanzania is. Yeah. And therefore, what are we saying? Opposition is not about to stop in Tanzania. Yeah. It would have stopped if Tanzania was able to make the economic strides that would have satisfied the bulk of the population. But with the growing poverty, growing gap between the haves and the have-nots in Tanzania, which for a long time has been socialist in its orientation. Yeah. That is causing a lot of jitters in that country. Yeah. So the party need to prepare for the opposition as we move forward. So this is not an election, really. Yeah. As somebody put it, it's a coronation. Okay. So we are waiting for an election in the future. Okay. Declaration.
Professor Midamba, ideally looking at the number of young Tanzanians, young Africans in particular, to focus on Tanzania, Chama cha Mapinduzi has little to show for its decades-long presence in power, is it in Tanzania, in the context of today, the arrests, the abductions that Amnesty International has documented ahead of the elections?
Ayub, I started by giving you history of democracy from those countries that have practiced it for years. And I said in the UK, 760 years, leave alone the Greek and all that. And then in America, 230 years of democracy until this man called Trump came on in the system. If we're serious, because unless you come up with some miracle and create some system that never existed in the world for Africa, we are in democracy. And it's democracy that has worked all over the world. And one thing that brings democracy together is a strong, independent judiciary. And that strong judiciary, that's what has happened in America and Europe and everywhere. And China turned around recently, 47 years, and created a miracle of feeding his people, a miracle of strategic development, which bring it in second only to United States in 47 years. Africa, 68 years since Ghana got independent. And here we are right now fighting each other and fighting these young people. The young people will not be tolerant to that kind of thing. They have the right to vote, right to choose their future. And if you fear them by trying to repress them, that's when you create a revolution. So we have to really look at sort of, our youngest one, South Sudan. South Sudan is only 14 years old. And people are killing each other left and right. And so you ask, is this a country I need to stay? Most of them are here in Kenya. They are left the country. This is their country. This is their continent. They're not going anywhere. And so all this repressive against the rule of law, protection of individual rights, like our friend here enumerated very clearly, and check and balance, check on the executive, so the executive don't control that. I'm to a point, gentlemen, that this electoral body must not be chosen by the executive. We can put it under judiciary or under something else, but not the executive, so that you can suppress element of democracy.
Ayub, yes. The question before us is whether the African political elite wants to get overthrown, or are they going to open up these societies, accept some basic fundamental tenets of democratic government, or what has happened, for example, in Madagascar, which I predicted here, what has happened in the Sahel, which I predicted. These scenarios in which the military stages a coup and then in itself becomes even more authoritarian is indicative on whether we should ask ourselves a very basic premise. Is the state and the market in Africa appropriate to the political economy of stability? I think this is a very important question to ask. I think that in Tanzania, and there's different experiences across Africa, I think in Tanzania, that there has been a social experiment, which has largely worked. But a social experiment that does not work with a political experiment is bound to fail. Now, inside the Chama cha Mapinduzi, there is the right wing. The right wing is Suluhu. There used to be the popular wing, the last president who passed away.
Yeah.
His name is Magufuli. And there is the left wing, which is Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete.
Where do you place Benjamin Mkapa?
Benjamin Mkapa was a conservative CCM loyalist.
In the middle.
I mean, him and Mwinyi just wanted to finish what Nyerere was doing and hand over power. So there was a kind of Chinese system inside the CCM in which there was religious issues. A Muslim would get 1 term, 2 terms, and then there would be a Christian who would get a 2 term. It's there. It's not said, but it's there if you look at the continuation. But there are ideological differences inside the CCM. There is the right wing, the populist wing, and the left wing. You know, one thing I'm really shocked about is Mr. Jakaya Mrisho, who's probably one of the most articulate and adroit politicians to ever come out of Tanzania. He was stopped by Julius Nyerere. He would have beaten Mkapa in an election inside the CCM. Nyerere said, no, it's his turn, then I'll give it to you. And Nyerere was right. He was very young then. Now, he has the most influence over Suluhu. If there's a person who has influence over Suluhu, it's Jakaya Kikwete. And I think that the CCM has moved to the right wing with Suluhu. And therefore, once you move to the right, what you do is you go back to the old roots of the socialist Ujamaa thinking of, you know, cadreship, where each person must follow. If you go to Tanzania, a person who holds office and they're junior, I mean, they worship their leaders to a certain extent. And I think that the underlying sociology of Tanzania does not correspond to this kind of thinking. It does not. Neither does it understand even what the Ujamaa or the socialist tendencies within Tanzania was, which Julius Nyerere himself said failed in the economic sphere. Now, I want to put it to you, Ayub, that it is very important for us to understand that Tanzania is at the cusp of transformation. There are tensions between Zanzibaris and Tanzanians. There are tensions within the political party. The social formations that today are inside Tanzania reject this kind of nonsense that's going on in Tanzania. We should not have opposition leaders in jail. And the fact that Ms. Suluhu, Madam Suluhu, came from a constitutional transfer of power in which she could have never won an election, and she never stayed true to the roots of what brought her to power, to me is gobsmacking. It just shocks the hell out of me.
Okay, and Ebole, tomorrow dissidents on election day are calling for demonstrations. You have seen also attempts in the totalitarian clampdown on free speech, especially targeting the Gen Z, given what happened here in Kenya in 2024, and how even the Tanzanian parliament debated that matter when Martha Karua and team were ejected out of the country. Should that be a cause of concern, especially, and which may portend many people ending up in cells?
Most definitely, and just to follow up, to understand Suluhu first, you have to understand how she came into power. The second, her first few months in power, and what changed.
It's very important.
Her first cabinet. Yes. And how after a while, when, the Prof and my colleagues here talk about, the 3 factions within CCM, and how we had people like John Kabundi come back, how we had the Magufuli, I call the Magufuli ghost or group, come back into the cabinet, and how we had her now go into the person that we are seeing. These authoritarian practices that we are seeing did not just emerge out of anywhere. But going back into elections tomorrow, so there are 3 factions. So there is a faction that is saying that we are going to demonstrate, and that is the faction of no reforms, no election. Then there is that is saying we are going to tick, so we are going to vote. And there is another one that is taking it a step higher and is saying that we are going to to guard the vote. So we are going to stay at the polling stations and we are going to guard the vote. It's interesting because now, of course, the other two, the ones no reforms, no elections, who want to demonstrate, we are fearful that in a government that has not allowed any peaceful assembly, we are fearful that there would be a clampdown or a brutal dispersal of such kind of an assembly. Then the faction that wants to stay behind and guard the vote, all the two, by the way, it's within their constitutional right, for as long as they are doing it peacefully. Again, the state has made an announcement that you guys, after the vote, you've got no business staying here. You have to go back home. But again, if you want to understand how tomorrow will actually churn out, you have to understand how the government, how the state has been dealing with every assembly. And this includes assembly, as I mentioned earlier, even in court. In April, while I was in Dar es Salaam, there is a group of more than 50 who are rounded up, who are trying to access court. 23 were arbitrarily arrested, taken to some forest, tortured. 2 were even sexually abused, and left there. We interviewed these people, and their crime was trying to access court. So you can imagine the kind of force that will be meted on those that will actually want to seem to want to prevent an election from taking place. But again, with the young folks, and one thing that I like about this conversation I mentioned before is that Tanzania is now being discussed globally. A few months ago, I would tell people that Tanzanians fight and kill each other in Swahili. Kenyans always get so surprised that there is violence. In Zanzibar, by the way, there has been post-election violence.
Very bad violence.
And people get killed.
Yeah.
There are forces that come from Burundi. There are forces that come from Uganda. In Zanzibar. But you as a Kenyan, a month later, after elections, you will go to Tanzania, you will go to Zanzibar on a holiday, you will not know that people died because of an election here. Every year, 2005, 2010, 2015, 2020, I hope it does not happen in 2025. I do not know about 2000 and before. Perhaps I had not started, as in understanding the politics there.
Yes.
So these things are now known. These things are now being discussed. And the point is that at this point, the world needs to do something about Tanzania. Otherwise, the situation will deteriorate.
Yeah, and Prof, what then could be the factors that may lead to that push? For instance, you talked about the struggle for multipartyism, and at the time, the build-up came, and there was the corresponding events that were happening. The collapse of the Berlin Wall, East and West Germany reunited, marking the end of the Soviet Empire, and the changes of regimes largely across Europe. What then would be the factors that may push Tanzania to open up, given that, for instance, Tundu Lissu's treason trial, the verdict is scheduled conveniently for 2 weeks after the election?
Now, I have said that, let me make this point very strongly. Tanzania is a ticking time bomb. The reason being that if a country does not change deliberately and voluntarily, it is changed. It actually incites a revolution within itself.
Yeah.
And what we are seeing Tanzania hurtling to, I'm sure Mama Suluhu will be comfortable wherever she is. I'm winning the election, but she's not winning a context. She's actually being coronated as a CCM monarch. CCM monarch because there's no democracy there. And not because there cannot be democracy. She has made it completely impossible for people even to express themselves. So it's the proverbial pot that's boiling, the pot and has no vent. The moment it gets the vent, it's going to implode. And that is Tanzania for you. The long-term causes are very clear. It is authoritarianism that gets people into poverty. Because if Tanzania's authoritarianism got them somewhere to where Lee Kuan Yew's Singapore or Xi Jinping's China is, nobody would be competing. In fact, Tanzania itself would now be a threat to democracies like ours. because we would want to have benevolent dictatorships that get us to prosperity. And I'm saying international and other human rights would be dismissing them with cost because they're not adding value to our debate. But Tanzania has basically united its way into poverty, not unity into prosperity. And that's a very serious charge. Second, and this is what really everybody overlooks, and I think my brother listened to it. I was an expert guest of Jakaya Kikwete in 2015 and his team. I'm saying so because they paid for everything for me. Okay, and the issue is that they were reviewing the constitution. And I had published a lot within the East Africa, and they say this kind of ideas need to come into us. I got a concept in Tanzania which I had never got in Kiswahili. I'd just come from outside, therefore my Kiswahili was not the best. So I was fascinated when I had kero za muungano. And you know, they were talking about kero za muungano, the grievances, the pains,
the nervousness,
the pains of unity. And they were talking about basically the island colonizing the mainland. This is what was the essence, because Tanzania has two presidents, the president of Zanzibar and the president of the mainland. But when it comes to unity, there is only one president and two vice presidents, and one comes from must come from Zanzibar. That's where Suluhu is coming in. So in this election, Zanzibar is going to have two presidents, and the mainland is going to have one. Don't forget, these are salaried people. These are people with privileges and everything. And the mainland Tanzanians feel that they have been given a raw deal. And you know, we have already nationalized the Makode here, who many of them had come to this country as refugees, arising from some of these conflicts that we always talk about, that Tanzania is united, there is no problem, it's a peaceful Dar es Salaam, the land of peace. This is a myth that we must now begin to say, why should we be concerned at Kenyans? Because I'm sure they are my friends, Kabudi and others in Tanzania watching me. Why should we be concerned with Tanzania? Because we are joined at the hip. Tanzania is as Kenya gets. And Kenya is as Tanzania as Tanzania gets. So they cannot talk about being in an island where we are not going to comment. And they will never sleep in peace as long as they are doing those abductions, those killings, those jailing of opposition leaders, because their disease, the Tanzanian disease, is going to get to us.
It spreads.
So we are not going to allow the Tanzanian disease to get into us, so that President Ruto, by 2027, ikifika hapo 2026, anaanza kushika, if it can, why not?
In Uganda.
The Tanzanian disease, they have done it in Uganda. So we don't want the Tanzanian disease in Kenya. And therefore we are going to cure the Tanzanian disease. That's why Mother Karua will not stop going to Tanzania.
And Uganda.
She's not going to stop going to Uganda. And we're going to encourage her and give her the support to go and liberate our two sister countries. Why? So that we don't get the Ugandan disease and we don't get the Tanzanian disease.
I'll come to you on the disease part. I'll come to the
we are getting.
I know it's very interesting.
We are hooked at the hip, the entire East Africa. Our colonial experience brought us much more together. You remember we used to have one rail system, post system, everything working to us. And there were Kenyans there, very large number of Kenyans, very large number of Tanzania in this place. The young people that we have today are different. They are not going to wait and hesitate for a promise 20 years from now. They want it right now. And Tanzania has so much potential in terms of the country is blessed with good weather, good agricultural land and everything. And the one thing I can tell you economically, Tanzania is one of the only countries in Africa that has not taken in a huge amount of Chinese investment. They're not one of the top 10. Now, so the issue is, if they can take on Ethiopian strategy to build that gas field by themselves and control it, and do other things and open themselves to the market, which they need to do. The country need to be developed. They need highway system, they need education, they need advanced medical system, and all that kind of stuff. Unless the government marching on a step-by-step, I can tell you to where Kenya is and where Uganda is, there's going to be a revolution in the country by young people. So young people cannot be taken for granted, and also you cannot control them. You have to work with them, you have to understand.
Yes, Amir Yohana.
From my mother's side, I have family in Arusha, and I was lucky because I could speak Swahili better than I speak English. There's a saying in Swahili which says, barabara unayopita wewe leo miguu zangu zinatona kama jasho.
Eish. What does that mean?
Yeah.
I speak,
Well, you can explain that for Professor Midam.
No, I'm going to translate. I'm going to translate because Kiswahili. Because Kiswahili is probably it's the next language for our continent. It is a beautiful language. Its art form in Taarab, which has been developed in our coast here in Tanzania, is a heritage of the world, not only us. So Mama Suluhu, who understands Kiswahili more than she understands English, needs to understand that the Kenyan experience, and what many of us have been through here, and the consequences of what we have in this country, it's very important for the Tanzanian political elite to study what happened here, and to study it in a scientific way, because it is not tenable for early in the 21st century, for a country like Tanzania, which is now attracting tremendous amounts of investments from all over the world. It is attracting, all the leaders of the world are coming there because of the stability, the basis of nationhood is there. The political experience that they've gone through is something that Africa cannot even touch. We are unable to unite ourselves with the other conservative country in this region. What's his name, the Wanyankole fellow in Kampala? Yoweri is my cousin. You know, it's the Bah Ankole, because the Somalis are the ones who went and married over there in the Bunyoro Kitara area and produced this Bah Nyankole. It's a corruption of the Bah Nyankole. It's Wanyankole.
The Bahima.
And the Bahima, and all this, all the way down to eastern DRC.
They are Somalis.
They're ethnic
Somalis.
You see, they're a mixture of the Bantu and the Cushitic people.
Yes, yes.
And that's who we produced over there all the way to Mali and Chad. Now, I want to say that if they don't understand what is going on in Kenya's history, they might not understand what's going on in Tanzania. I'll give you a specific example. There's a Minister of Tourism who said they're going to put up a curtain so that Kenyans cannot see
Kilimanjaro.
No,
I can guarantee you. I was there yesterday.
No, can I just finish this?
Can
I just finish this point?
Yes,
you know, it's shocking that that kind of thinking is in the cabinet of the Union of Tanzania, which to many of us is an example of where we as countries need to go. We want to unite, we want to break down our tribal differences, we want to create a national culture with a Kiswahili. English is a working world capital now, there's nothing we can do about that anyway. But we have to be bilingual, we have to have Kiswahili. Now, when you get authoritarianism to punch through in such a pernicious way, I think it is the responsibility of the former presidents of Tanzania to go and visit Ms. Suluhu after the elections, not now, and tell her, listen, if you continue on this, there'll be a push within the CCM. I predict a major fallout in the Chama Cha Mapinduzi after the elections.
Yes.
Because Samia Suluhu does not have the roots, the sociological access of power in that party.
Yeah.
The reason why they put her there was to get over the constitutional crisis of the death of Magufuli. And then there is the tradition that this is the turn of the Muslims.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is an unsaid covenant.
Yep.
So there are many, many things that is arguing for the case of Suluhu. And Suluhu would have won this election without putting these people in jail. Yeah. She would have won in a landslide, because the way the Chama cha Mapinduzi is organized is just, there's no chance for Chadema and the other groups. Okay. And for her to squelch them is going to cause ripples inside the Chama cha Mapinduzi. And I predict on this show that you'll see a crisis.
And just as we do, they only have one former living head of state, is it? Prof, they only have one former living head of state, JK. Like we do?
Yes, Jakaya Kikwete. Yeah. The others
like
are gone.
Uhuru, yeah. And is gone, and Mkapa is gone.
Yes, and Mkapa is gone. Mwinyi is gone.
Magufuli is gone.
Magufuli is gone.
Only Mrisho is left.
Only Mrisho is standing, and I don't think he's standing.
No, he's
because
not.
He's basically both feet.
But he's the singular influence. He's the singular influence. And he's the one who put her in power.
Yeah, and
inside the CCM.
Yeah.
When the president died, it is Mrisho who organized to have a peaceful constitutional transfer of power.
But the problem is that Mrisho himself doesn't have the influence in the party. Because if you have been observing dynamics within CCM, the various ideological groups, like in our Kano, you remember Kano 1990 and 1991, there was a group that was talking about cutting two fingers, the extremists, Kata Vidole Mbile. Then there was a group that was more intellectual, George Saitoti and others, going by the way of commission. Let's listen to the people and hear what they are saying. And then there was now the right-wing group, Akina Kibaki, Jenga, and many others. Kamothos, who wanted change. And now, obviously, the change came, but they were also changed by that change. Because the extremists continued to hold the sway. So Mkapa is in that particular, Jakaya Kikwete is in that situation, but he still has, as a former president, he still has the sway. And I think if there is anything I would recommend for Kikwete, is to set up that foundation, not for Tanzania alone, but for the region, so that he becomes a fulcrum of change. Because Tanzania, what is happening in Tanzania is greatly influencing what is happening in Uganda. And I'm sure my brother here is saying, no, it can't happen. But the
in Kenya, will not happen.
I hear you.
But look at, be done over our dead
but look at it. In Uganda, they have jailed anybody who is eligible to hold any position other than Museveni and the family. In Tanzania, they are, even as we speak, in the progress coming down on anybody who would form an opposition within the party or outside the party. Now, what tells you that they cannot arrest Kalonzo, arrest Matiang'i, arrest Martha Karua,
arrest us,
and finally begin now to go down on us, intellectuals who are speaking. So our battle, yes, that's why our battle must move from Nairobi to Dar es Salaam
and to Kampala.
So we have to push the water.
We have to push them.
Yes, Ronald.
But you see, the thing is that...
Should we be worried about the political disease that Prof had?
Good question.
This is denialism. Remember, we are talking about cross-border repression.
Yes.
And last year was just a hit on the Kenyan soil. Remember the 36 FDC, Forum for Democracy and Change party members arrested in Kisumu, tortured, crossed over to Kampala to face treason charges. Of course, they were all released because there was no grounds. Remember the Turkey 7. 4 of them were renditioned to Turkey. Kizza Besigye is a case that you do not even want
to speak about.
To even speak about.
Yes.
Then remember
the attempted takeover of Maria.
Say hi. And the silence in Tanzania, the silence in Uganda.
Yes.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yes.
I was with Maria at Yaya Center for 10 minutes drinking coffee. The minute she left, she was arrested.
That was an abduction.
I mean abduction.
That was not even an arrest.
And I went home and slept that day. I thought I was a fearless man. I don't think I'm that fearless. Go ahead.
The same way, Uganda and Tanzania, in all these cases, were silent.
Yes.
So Boniface happens, Martha Karua happens, Willy Mutunga, these high-ranking Kenyans. Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Kenya government was silent.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Whatever is happening in Uganda right now, we have 2 Kenyans, Nicholas Oyo and Bob Njagi. They have disappeared there.
And the government here is very silent about it.
So that means that disease, that cross-border repression, leaders are talking, they're uniting, they're convoluting, I don't know what other language I can say on top, and it needs, you know, the citizens, the elite, the, what do you call, the, you know, us at the bottom here, if it's a bottom, to really have solidarity to push against this. Our report, you know, the title is Unchecked, Unopposed, Unjust. Wave of terror ahead of the 2025 elections. The report that I researched back in 2020 was lawfare ahead of the 2020 elections.
Yeah.
So Magufuli revived, alifufua sheria ambazo zilikuwa zimezikwa.
Yeah.
Revived old laws, established new laws, and used a system of lawfare to get his way. And you can remember CCM has got more than 98, actually 99% of current members of parliament, because they actually rigged out everyone, including opposition members in their strongholds. So this year, we are calling it an unchecked, unopposed, unjust, because Mama has gone. I do not even want to use the term Mama, because Tanzanians would actually not be kind with me. They do not like it.
Yeah, yeah.
She has used more than what Magufuli used, not just laws. You know, we did not hear of sexual torture.
Yeah, it's very bad.
This is a new phenomenon.
It's the gendered authoritarianism.
It's just authoritarianism.
Gendered authoritarianism.
And we need to actually discuss that.
Yes, Prof, your hand was up here.
Yes, Prof.
Ayub.
You know, he's our eldest person.
Yes, I always have. I'm looking out for you.
Like a balance.
So when I hold my finger like that,
Yeah, people keep quiet.
by the way, my students are watching.
Very good.
From Tanzania to Uganda. They're all
That's wonderful.
They're all watching us. The thing I want to say is political parties that were created in Africa up to now don't mean much unless they can create a vision and a clear strategy for people to have food and for people to have their welfare taken care of. That means housing, that means health care, that means education and all that. They become nothing. KANU is dead, you know, because KANU was personalized by Moi. And then, so become meaningless, it's gone. So that, all this doesn't mean anything. And the issue is we're all watching each other, not only in East Africa, but in Africa, as I have. Which country is leading and why are they leading? Which country is accumulating debt every day? Like Angola cannot pay its $51 billion to China. Zambia's $9.5 billion, and they're in default. And so Tanzania is in a much better place because they have not accumulated as much debt as other people have said. Ethiopia has built Grand Renaissance Dam. You know what that means? It can provide power to the entire East Africa, done by Ethiopians, not anybody else. And so when people are in cocoon, dreaming about better world, but they cannot justify that world, they have no business going in getting leadership, because these young people are impatient and they're connected with the rest of the world. They're watching what is going on, and they're not going to be. It doesn't matter how many you put in yet. You know, that won't do it.
Yes, yeah.
Just to add to my learned senior and my teacher, the Somalis, whom I like to speak about a lot, sent their East African legislators. And, you know, they're supposed to be elected under political parties. You know, there's this whole lot of rules. And the Somalis, whom I think are going to be a great nation and a great state, and once they get their things together, and we can send 2 million Kenyans to work there, who send $1,000, that's about $20 billion every year. They need to get a grip. The president of Somalia, whom I urged to join the East African community, I urged him, and he took me up on that offer, sent these legislators without following the laws on disability. the laws on all these other issues that were supposed to be done. There is no political party in Somalia. The only political parties are in northern Somalia, Wadani, Kulmiye. These parties are the ones that contest elections. What we want to see is the experiment that is there in northern Somaliland to go down all the way to Kismayo, so that people can go and elect their leaders inside. We want that to happen in Ethiopia. We want it to happen because they're taking billions of dollars from the Ogaden region to the central state, and they're not, they get 5% of it.
Yep.
So there's all these issues, and my learned friend on the right is right, that if we don't fight authoritarianism there, if we don't bring Somalia together, if we don't create the East African community and make it democratic, it gives power to those ones who are here, who say, our neighbors are doing this, why should we not do it? Even though we have something called a nuclear weapon, called the Gen Zs. Here in this country, nobody is going to try to roll back, because we have nuclear weapons of 80% of the population of these kids who are willing, let me just finish, who are willing to go to the bulwarks and go to the barricades and fight. You saw me in the...
Are you talking about weapons or kamikazes?
No, we're talking about the ability, to fight. Ayub, you remember I was in the last demonstrations.
They went to the...
You remember?
I saw you taking in tear gas.
Yeah, I was taking in tear gas.
He made an appearance, or he was...
Yes, no, I was there. Yeah. It was filmed by the stations. So I'm just saying to the people of Tanzania, we love them. They are a great people, and we want them to do better than this. We want Somalia to come together. We want them to join East Africa in a proper way, not to appoint people from clans called 4.5. We reject that. We reject Ethiopia's lack of democratic government. We in Kenya are going to push for change in the region, come what may.
Yeah, and Prof, given the submissions that you have made, all of you have made here, what are the risks then in Kenya becoming isolated because of the sandwiched position in the midst of creeping in totalitarianism in the region?
This is not new. And Kenyans have basically weathered all these storms. If you go back historically to the 1960s, late 1960s and 1970s, there was a fever, a socialist fever, sweeping across Africa. Everybody thought that, socialism was the nirvana, where we all have to go. Kwame Nkrumah talked of Africa socialism. Now Nyerere came up with the Ujamaa. And in Uganda, Obote came up with the Common Man's Charter, which was a Ugandan version of socialism. And here in Kenya, we said no. We are a market nation, and we came up with the sessional paper number 10 of 1965, and said, and it basically defined the economic parameters of our country and the social interventions to deal with it. So we did not reject socialism, we took the best out of it. That's how Harambee was born. It has been misused, abused by politicians who think carrying money in trucks and bringing it to the meetings for show-up is what we call Harambee. Yep. Harambee is basically the ordinary person going to the pocket and giving that proverbial coin Jesus praised, and as a contribution. Iyo kitu kidogo, that small thing is what Harambee was about. Those were part of the social interventions. In Tanzania, they basically began to ridicule us as Kenyans. So this is not the first time we're having this Cold War. Yeah. Nyerere himself, the founder of the country, who loved Kenya greatly because he delayed the independence of his country.
Correct.
So that Kenya can be free. And if those who are historically conscious would know that the earliest time Kenya would have gotten independence was in 1980, yep. Along the lines of Zimbabwe, yep. Because us and Zimbabwe are a copycat. I mean, they are clones, yep. The way the British conceived us. Mm-hmm. So they used to talk about man eat man society.
Njonjo.
And some of us thought that they said man eat nothing society. and they have actually not moved from man eat nothing society. What we have said is their authoritarianism has not brought prosperity, it has brought poverty. Yeah. This is it.
Thank you, Prof.
And the resources they have are, compared with ours, are so immense that they should be reading in this whole region. Ethiopia does not even have a quarter of what Tanzania has.
Correct.
And remember, I know Hashi is very fond of this. He's one of our most renowned Tanzania Firia here in Kenya.
The
unity of Tanzania is not a product of Nyerere.
It's a product of Zanzibar.
Not even Zanzibar. It is basically coming from the Maji Rebellion, where the whole of Tanzania united against, the Germans. And then they used that ideology to unify. Tanzania is almost 70 to 90% Bantu. Unlike us here, who have a huge Cushitic group, we have the Nilotes here,
That's too bad for you, Kagwanja. I know you are looking for a paradise of the Bantus here. You are not getting it. Hakuna mambo ya high kazi na
but see now, how can we have unity? How can we have the kind of unity you are talking about? So we are doing political engineering that Raila was praised for. Political engineering, so that we can have calm down the hot bloods of the Kushites, and the swift legs of the Nilotes.
Thank you. Let's now sample the feedback.
Okay, let's sample the feedback.
And see what Kenyans are saying. The first one is, so my director Ibrahim is pulling that up. Frank Orinda says, Tanzania is slowly slipping back into the shadows of control. Dissent is being silenced, institutions are bending, and fear is creeping back into public life. The gains of democracy are under threat, and the region is watching. Power should protect, not persecute. Bob Otieno Wino says Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu is following into our president's footsteps by ignoring the young generation's rage, which is going to taint her leadership negatively. Babu Michael says the current regimes in East African community seem to have a common oppressive agenda against its youth. That's why when such unlawful abductions happen, no regime seems to care or call them out. It's very unfortunate, but this will change. Sir Nixon Dugure says in the moral realm, there is very little consensus left in African countries, particularly East Africans, over the proper basis of moral and ethical leadership. Gagging the electorate is worsening issues, infringing the democratic space. MC_Ruma says we are witnessing a decline in democratic space in East African community. Look at what's happening in Tanzania. Who is Samia running against? She has jailed all her competitors. The people of Tanzania should resist all forms of oppression and authoritarianism.
Agreed.
Bob Otieno says Tanzania is at crossroads just like Kenya because of poor leadership and political elites thriving through status quo. And that was the last one. This is also from... interesting one from Benjin Dolo, who on Twitter said, Daybreak, your show this morning is a political science and diplomacy unit in college. Guests have demonstrated a rare command of regional history, detailed ideology, and with specific focus on the issues at hand.
Led by Ayub Abdikadir, the best anchor in East Africa.
And we have one from one of the generals, I will not mention the name, who said, Professor, good morning. Very good debate. Now President Suluhu Hassan, in her campaign, is promising to have a new constitution in 5 years, period. Is she genuine when she does not show any compassion to democracy?
Good question.
This is from a Kenyan general, who is concerned as well.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, much appreciated. Ronald, appreciate it.
What a great show, Ayuba. Just amazing show.
Thank you.
We're teaching the whole region, and I think this is just fantastic.
Thank you.
The Suluhu disease. We are in a new authoritarian bout.
I think our professor should get the last word.
And yes, Professor Midamba.
The future is in our hand. We can shape it whatever we want, whichever we want, or we go back several years to huts.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate your time. Professor Noah Medamba, Professor Peter Kagwanja, Ahmed Ashi, thank you. Ronald, thank you. Of course, we will wait for the outcome. There is the West African situation as well. Ivory Coast, Tanzania next.
Cameroon is a mess.
Uganda, January.
Yeah, January, it's a mess.
So a lot to discuss, and we will reconvene this class again.
Chickens are coming home to
Ivory Coast.
Asante, thank you so much.
But remember to get the school fees from your...
Are we going
Good morning.
Wednesday next week?